It was a crisp autumn afternoon, and the scent of fresh-baked bread drifted through the small-town bakery on Main Street. Claire moved behind the counter with the grace of someone who truly loved her job, not just for the pastries or the regulars, but for something deeper. She always said her bakery, Sweet Grace, wasn't just about feeding stomachs, it was about feeding souls. Every day at precisely 4 p.m., just as the last batch of muffins came out of the oven, Claire would quietly step out the back door carrying a brown paper bag. She never made a show of it. She didn't post about it. Most customers had no idea she even left the building. But Tom did. Tom was the man who waited across the alley on the bench behind the bakery. He was weathered and worn, his beard streaked with gray, his coat patched in more places than it was whole. To most people he was invisible, but not to Claire. For over 6 years, she had brought him food every single day, without fail. Fresh pastries, sandwiches, coffee in winter, cold water in summer. Sometimes a new pair of socks tucked discreetly at the bottom of the bag. Sometimes just a warm smile and a gentle, "See you tomorrow." He never asked for it, never expected it, but he always waited, patiently, gratefully. And Claire never asked him questions. She never pushed. It wasn't charity. It was kindness. One cold January afternoon, when she brought his usual bag, Tom reached out and gently touched her hand. His eyes were glassy. "You know," he said softly, "people walk by me every day like I'm trash. But you treat me like I matter, like I'm still human." Claire smiled. "That's because you do matter, Tom." He nodded, gripping the bag tightly. "I hope, one day, I get to do something for you. You'll never know how much this means." Claire just laughed lightly. "You already have. More than you know." She didn't think much of the moment. After all, she had 100 things to do and orders to fill. But something about his voice that day lingered in her heart. What Claire didn't know was that Tom wasn't who she thought he was. And the truth wouldn't be revealed until the most important day of her life. Claire's bakery had always been a peaceful haven for the people of the town. Locals came in not just for her legendary cinnamon rolls, but also because the atmosphere felt like home. Kids would wave through the windows, old couples sat in the corner sipping tea, and Claire, always smiling, always present, was the heartbeat of it all. But behind her calm eyes, Claire carried a quiet pain. She had grown up in foster care, shuffled from home to home, often overlooked and misunderstood. Her dream of owning a bakery wasn't just about food. It was about creating the warmth and belonging she never had as a child. Tom, the homeless man, had somehow become part of that dream. Without many words, he became her reminder that compassion mattered more than wealth or appearance. She didn't care where he came from or what his story was. To her, he was a human being deserving of dignity. Life moved on, seasons changed, and the day finally came when Claire was getting married. The entire town buzzed with excitement. The wedding was set in the garden behind the bakery, a place filled with roses, fairy lights, and handmade touches. She was marrying Jacob, a kind-hearted firefighter who adored her resilience, her heart, and yes, even her stubborn insistence on waking up at 4 a.m. to bake croissants. As she stood in front of the mirror that morning, Claire took a deep breath. Her dress shimmered like a promise, simple but beautiful. She had no idea that her past acts of kindness were about to rewrite the entire course of the day. Guests began to arrive, filling the space with laughter and soft music. Jacob stood under the arch, nervously adjusting his tie, while Claire peeked out from behind the curtain, her heart racing. Then it happened. Gasps. Whispers. People stood up, turning toward the back of the garden. Confused, Claire stepped forward and looked. 12 U.S. Marines, in full dress uniform, were walking in formation down the aisle. Their boots struck the stone pathway in perfect rhythm. Medals glinted in the sunlight. They carried an air of reverence, as if they were honoring a fallen hero, but they weren't here for a funeral. They were here for Claire. As they reached the front, one Marine stepped forward, a tall man with gray at his temples and sharp eyes. He saluted Jacob, then turned to Claire with a smile. "You don't know us, Miss Claire," he said, voice deep and steady, "but we all know you." Confused, stunned, Claire's mouth parted. I don't understand." The man's smile widened. "Tom, your friend behind the bakery, was never just a homeless man. He was Master Sergeant Thomas Keller, highly decorated, quiet hero, one of the finest men I've ever served with." Claire's breath caught. Her knees almost gave out. "He lived on the streets for years after a tragedy took everything from him. He never let anyone in. Until you. You fed him. You gave him dignity. And more than that, you gave him hope." Tears filled Claire's eyes. "But he passed away last week," the Marine said softly, "from natural causes. Before he died, he told us about you. Said you were his angel. His words, not mine. And he made us promise that on your wedding day we'd be here." Claire pressed her hand to her mouth, trembling. "He left behind no family, but he left you us, his brothers. We're here to honor you, to thank you, and to make sure you know that your kindness didn't go unseen." The garden fell silent, every guest visibly moved. Even Jacob wiped at his eyes. One by one, the Marines saluted Claire. And Claire, overwhelmed, stunned, and deeply touched, realized that the man she thought she had been helping all those years had been quietly helping her in return. She had given food and kindness. But Tom had left her something even bigger. And this day, this wedding, was only the beginning of what he had in store. The sun dipped lower into the horizon as the 12 Marines stood at attention, their uniforms sharp, their presence commanding. Guests at the wedding sat stunned in reverent silence, processing the profound tribute they had just witnessed. Claire, now barely able to contain her emotions, took a step forward toward the Marines, her voice trembling but strong. I didn't know," she whispered, eyes filled with tears. "He never said a word about who he really was." The lead Marine gently nodded. "He didn't want to be treated any differently. He said he'd rather be just Tom, the guy behind the bakery, than be known for his medals." Claire closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the moment settle deep in her heart. All those years of quiet exchanges, of slipping him warm meals in a paper bag, of smiling at him like he was just another neighbor. She hadn't realized the depth of the trust she had earned. But the surprises weren't over. The Marine stepped closer and reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a folded letter, its edges worn, its surface carefully sealed. "He asked us to deliver this to you, on this day." Claire took the letter with shaking hands. She opened it slowly, carefully, as if afraid the words might disappear. It read, "Dear Claire, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I never said much, and I'm sorry for that. I didn't want you to see me any different from how you did, just a guy needing kindness, and you gave me more of it than I ever thought I deserved. You saved me, Claire. You didn't know it, but your kindness pulled me out of a place darker than war itself. You reminded me what humanity felt like, and for that, I owe you everything. So I left you something. Not because I think you need it, but because I want you to have it. You gave me peace. I want to give you freedom. Go to the locker at First Union Bank. Ask for Box 119. Show them this letter. They'll know what to do. You're more than a baker, Claire. You're a light in a world that desperately needs it. Keep shining. With all my gratitude, Tom, aka Master Sergeant Thomas Keller. Claire's hands dropped to her side, the letter still clenched in her fingers, her breath shallow. Murmurs swelled through the guests as the Marines stepped aside to allow the ceremony to continue. But her mind was spinning. Later that week, after the whirlwind of her wedding settled, Claire visited the bank. She handed the letter to the branch manager, who read it solemnly and immediately escorted her to the private vault. The manager opened box 119 and slid it out. Inside was a thick envelope and a key. Claire opened the envelope first. Inside was a note that simply said, "Use this wisely. Build more light." Beneath the note were documents, legal papers, signed deeds, and bank statements. Tom, the homeless man she had fed every week, had left her over $2.4 million in a trust fund, assets he had tucked away from his military retirement, smart investments, and money he never touched. But there was more. The key was to a small piece of land outside the city. Several acres Tom had bought long ago, hoping to one day build a retreat for veterans struggling to return to civilian life. Now it was hers. Claire sat there, stunned, speechless. The very man she had believed she was saving had been quietly planning to give her a legacy far beyond cinnamon rolls and coffee cups. He hadn't just trusted her with his secret. He had trusted her with his dream. What she did with it next would not only honor Tom's memory, but change lives forever. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of emotion, reflection, and decision-making. Claire wasn't the same woman who had stood behind the counter of a bakery, offering warm smiles and leftover pastries to a man the world had ignored. Now, she held the responsibility of a legacy, one she had never asked for, but one she now felt deeply called to honor. Word of Tom's posthumous gift spread through the town like wildfire. Local news stations wanted interviews. Strangers sent letters. Fellow veterans reached out, some with stories of Tom from his military days, others just to say how much his story, and hers, had moved them. But Claire stayed quiet, focused. She knew what she had to do. The first thing she did was meet with a lawyer and a group of veteran outreach coordinators. With their help, Claire set up Keller's Haven, a nonprofit retreat and recovery center on the land Tom had left her. It wasn't just about honoring his name. It was about giving others what he never asked for, but so clearly needed: dignity, healing, and a chance to start again. Construction began swiftly, with volunteers showing up every weekend. Some were veterans, some were people from Claire's community who had eaten her pastries for years and now saw her in a new light. Donations began to pour in. Claire matched each one with funds from the trust Tom had left, never touching a dollar for herself. But even as the center grew, Claire continued working at the bakery every morning. "You're a millionaire now," one of her employees told her once, half joking, half bewildered. Claire smiled. Tom never stopped showing up. Even when he had every reason to disappear, why should I? Her routine was the same. She'd open the shop, serve coffee, and make sure there was always one bag set aside, filled with food, tied with a bow, and left at the counter in case someone came in hungry. She started writing short notes inside each bag. A simple message. Sometimes, "You matter," or "Someone believes in you." One day, a young woman with worn clothes and tired eyes came in and reached for the bag. Claire smiled, just like always. The woman hesitated, then said quietly, "Are you the one who built that place for vets?" Claire nodded softly. "A friend helped me do it." The woman smiled back, tears welling up. "My brother. He's there now. He's been clean for 2 weeks. He said it's the first time he feels safe in years." Claire's heart swelled. Not because she needed validation, but because that was the moment she knew. Tom's light had truly begun to spread. Months later, when Keller's Haven officially opened its doors, the ribbon was cut by two people, Claire and a wheelchair-bound Marine who had once served under Tom's command. He gave a short, powerful speech. Tom may not have worn his medals on his chest in his final days, he said, but he passed them on, to someone who deserved them more. As the crowd clapped and the first group of veterans walked through the gates of the retreat, Claire stood silently, eyes glistening. Tom hadn't been just a man she helped. He had been the beginning of something far bigger, a story of compassion, humility, and unseen greatness. And now, because of a simple act of kindness exchanged over a counter, hundreds, maybe thousands of lives would change. All because one waitress decided to treat a homeless man not as a problem, but as a person. And in doing so, she proved that sometimes the quietest love can create the loudest legacy.